Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Before Alex, there was Darnell, the man Nova once loved with her whole heart. But while Nova eventually realized their relationship had become toxic and chose to move on, Darnell never accepted the end. To Darnell, Nova was never supposed to belong to anyone else. And now, the past he refused to let go of threatens to destroy the life Nova fought so hard to build. Love, obsession, betrayal, and heartbreak collide in part 2. Let's begin. The first week after Darnell's release passed without incident. That almost made it worse. No calls, no sightings, no threats, just silence. The kind that made Nova check reflections in windows and glance twice at parked cars. She hated that feeling more than fear itself, because fear she understood. Uncertainty was harder. Alexander noticed everything. The way she locked the penthouse door twice, how her laughter sometimes stopped the second a strange number called, how she no longer liked walking alone from the studio to the car, even when pretending otherwise. One evening, he found her standing in the kitchen at midnight, barefoot, eating cereal straight from the box, while staring into space. "That bad?" he asked gently. She glanced at him. "You ever had trauma flakes before?" He came beside her. "No, but I'm open to the experience." That earned a small smile. He took the box from her, set it aside, then leaned against the counter. "You don't have to perform being fine for me." Nova looked away. "I know." "Then don't." Her voice dropped. "I'm mad." "At him?" "At me." She crossed her arms. "I built this whole life, money, respect, power, and one man from my past still got me jumpy like I'm 22 again." Alexander shook his head. "No." She frowned. "No what?" "No man has that power over you now." He touched her chest lightly over her heart. "He has memories. That's different." The words landed deep. Nova exhaled slowly, then stepped into his arms. 2 days later, the memory became real. Nova was leaving a recording studio in the early evening with her assistant and 2 security guards when she saw him across the street, Darnell, leaning against a black sedan like he had nowhere else to be. Same broad frame, same heavy stare. Older now, harder around the edges, but unmistakably him. The city noise faded. He smiled when he saw her. Slow, possessive, familiar in all the wrong ways. "Damn, baby," he called across the street. "You look expensive now." One security guard moved instantly between them. Nova stopped walking. Her assistant whispered, "We should go." But Nova didn't move. Darnell pushed off the car and took a few steps closer, staying on the opposite sidewalk. "You ain't gonna say hi?" She felt the old instinct rise, leave, avoid, disappear. Then another instinct rose stronger. No more running. Nova stepped forward until she was visible past security. "Don't call me baby." His grin thinned. "Still got attitude." "Still got delusion, I see." Traffic rolled between them. Horns blared, neither noticed. He laughed once. "He got you talking slick now." "I always talk slick. You just never listened." His jaw flexed. "I heard you married some rich boy." "I married a man." The insult landed exactly where intended. Darnell's eyes darkened. "You was mine first." Nova felt something inside her go cold and clear. "No," she said evenly. "I was never yours." Silence. Even the guards looked at her. She took one more step forward. "You had access. You had time. You had chances." Her voice sharpened. "You never had ownership." Darnell's face hardened. "Careful how you talk to me." One of the guards spoke into an earpiece. Another positioned closer. Nova didn't blink. "No, you be careful how you approach me." She lifted her left hand, wedding ring catching the city lights. "I'm not the girl you intimidated. I'm not the woman you thought would wait." Then she pointed down the street. "And if you come near me again, you won't meet the old me." A black SUV pulled up behind her, Alexander's security detail arriving. Darnell looked from the guards to the vehicle to the ring on her hand. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. Nova smiled without warmth. "Run along." She turned her back on him and walked away. By the time she reached the penthouse, adrenaline had worn off and her hands were shaking. Alexander met her at the door before she could even set down her bag. "I heard." He looked over her face, her posture, her hands. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Did he touch you?" "No." Only then did he breathe fully. Nova stared at him for a moment, then started laughing shakily. "I cursed him out in heels." Alexander pulled her into his arms. "I'm very proud of you." She buried her face in his chest. "I was terrified." "I know. But I did it anyway." He held her tighter. "Yes," he said softly. "You did." And somewhere deep inside her, the old chapter finally began to close. That night, sleep didn't come easy. Nova lay awake beside Alexander, staring at the ceiling while the city glowed through the bedroom windows. She had faced Darnell, spoken clearly, walked away on her own terms. So why did her chest still feel tight? Alexander shifted beside her. Even half asleep, he sensed her unrest. "You're thinking loud," he murmured. She glanced over. "That makes sense in rich people language?" "It means, come here." Nova moved into his arms without argument. He tucked her against him, warm and solid, one hand resting at the back of her neck. "I hate that seeing him still does something to me," she whispered. Alexander kissed her hair. "Of course it does. He's just a chapter of your life that has already ended." "He's somebody connected to pain," Alexander said quietly. "That doesn't disappear because you've grown." Nova was silent for a moment. "I wanted to feel powerful after today." "You were powerful." "I feel shaky." He tipped her chin up so she had to meet his eyes. Strength and shaking are allowed to exist together. The words hit something tender in her. She kissed him softly. "Where'd you learn to talk like that?" "Maybe I just finally met someone worth choosing my words carefully for." She rolled her eyes, but tears threatened again. "Stop being sweet before I start fights for attention." The next morning, Alexander made calls before breakfast. By noon, lawyers had filed a formal no-contact notice. Security footage from the studio was preserved. Additional protective measures were put in place. Nova watched him move through the penthouse office. Calm, efficient, relentless. "You really don't play about me," she said from the doorway. He looked up from his laptop. "Never have." She leaned against the frame. "You know I can handle myself." "I know you can." "Then why you look ready to buy the whole police department?" Alexander removed his glasses. "Because capable women still deserve support." Nova blinked, then shook her head. That line was annoyingly attractive. Later that afternoon, Tasha came by carrying takeout and opinions. She hugged Nova tight. "I heard what happened. You okay?" "I'm dramatic, hungry, and healing." "So, medium okay." They sat in the kitchen while Alexander politely disappeared to take a call. Tasha studied her friend for a long moment. "You look different." Nova frowned. "Different good or different taxes?" "Different peaceful." Nova looked down at her ring. "I stood there yesterday and realized something." "What?" "I used to think surviving made me strong." Tasha nodded slowly. "And?" Nova smiled faintly. "Turns out being loved right made me stronger." Tasha's eyes softened. "There she go." Across town, Darnell was furious. He paced a cramped apartment borrowed from an old associate, replaying the confrontation over and over. Her calm face, her sharp words, the ring, the security. The fact that she had looked at him like he was small. His pride couldn't accept it. His temper wouldn't release it. "She thinks she too good now," he muttered. The friend on the couch glanced over. Maybe she just moved on. Darnell's stare turned dangerous. "Nah." He grabbed his jacket. "She need reminding where she came from." That evening, Nova and Alexander attended a private charity fundraiser, her first public event since the encounter. She wore a sleek black gown, confidence wrapped around every curve. Alexander stood beside her in a tailored tux, hand warm at the small of her back. Cameras flashed as they entered. A reporter called out, "Nova, how are you holding up after yesterday?" She paused, turned, and smiled brilliantly. "I'm married, moisturized, and minding my business." The crowd laughed. Alexander looked at her like she hung the moon. Inside the ballroom, she squeezed his hand. "You know he hates seeing me unbothered." Alexander squeezed back. "Then let's be radiant." She grinned. "That was smooth." "I'm learning from you." As they walked deeper into the room together, united and impossible to shake, neither of them noticed the man across the street watching the entrance from a parked car. Darnell lowered his hood and kept staring, watching every movement like he still had a claim on her life. His jaw flexed when he saw Alexander lean in close to say something that made Nova laugh. That laugh used to belong to him, in his mind anyway. "Look at her," he muttered under his breath. "Acting like she don't remember nothin'." The man beside him shifted uneasily. "Dee, this ain't a good idea. That's Whitmore security everywhere. I don't care who it is." His voice dropped lower, colder. "She forgot who made her." Inside the gala, Alexander noticed the change in Nova immediately. Not fear exactly. Something sharper, focused. "What is it?" he asked quietly as they moved through the crowd. Nova scanned the room once more before answering. "He's here." Alexander didn't ask who. He already knew. His hand slid more firmly to her waist, not possessive, anchoring. "Security is outside," he said calmly, "and inside. You're safe." Nova nodded once, but her eyes stayed alert. "I don't want a scene," she said. "You won't get one," Alexander replied. "You'll get distance." 10 minutes later, Darnell made his move. He stepped out of the car, adjusting his jacket like he belonged there. He crossed the street casually, blending into the evening foot traffic near the venue's entrance. But security noticed him instantly. One guard moved subtly into position. Another radioed in. Darnell ignored them as he reached the edge of the entrance line, and then he saw her again. Nova, standing under warm chandelier light, laughing softly at something Alexander said. The sight hit him like insult and memory at the same time. He stepped forward. "Nova." The sound cut through the air. Heads turned. Conversation slowed. Nova didn't flinch. She simply turned. "Wow," she said flatly. "You really don't listen to instructions." Darnell smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We need to talk." Alexander stepped forward slightly. "Just enough." "No, you don't." Darnell finally looked at him. "You think you better than me?" Alexander's tone stayed controlled. "This isn't about me." "It is now." Security closed in closer, forming a quiet barrier. Nova exhaled slowly. "Darnell, go home." That sentence did it. His expression hardened instantly. "You telling me what to do now?" "I'm telling you reality." She met his stare without shaking this time. "You don't get access to me anymore. You don't get space in my life. You don't get to show up and act like I owe you anything." Darnell laughed once, sharp and humorless. "After everything—" "There is no everything," Nova cut in. "There was a past. That's it." The crowd nearby had gone silent now. Phones subtly lifted. Alexander shifted closer to her side, not intervening, just present. Darnell's eyes flicked to him again. "That him?" he said lowly. "That who replaced me?" Nova's voice didn't rise. "No one replaced you," she said. "I outgrew you." That landed harder than anger ever could. For a second, Darnell just stood there, breathing heavier, like the world wasn't obeying his expectations anymore. Then he stepped forward. Security moved instantly. "Sir, you need to step back." Darnell shoved one hand out like he could push through the entire situation. "I said we talk—" And everything snapped into motion. Security intercepted him before he got another step. Firm, controlled restraint. No chaos, just removal. Darnell struggled briefly, yelling her name once more. "Nova, you don't just erase me." But she didn't move toward him, didn't flinch, didn't break. Alexander covered her slightly as the guards escorted Darnell out of the venue. The doors closed behind him with a final, clean sound. Silence returned slowly. Outside, Darnell was forced back toward the street. He twisted once in the guard's grip, eyes burning toward the glass doors. Through them, he could still see her, standing tall, untouched, not his, and that realization, finally undeniable, shifted something dangerous in him, not heartbreak, not acceptance, something closer to obsession refusing to die. Inside, Nova let out a slow breath she didn't realize she was holding. Alexander turned to her. "Are you all right?" She nodded, but her voice was quieter now, honest. "Yeah," she said, "I am." Then, after a pause, "I think that was the last time I'm scared of him." Alexander studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "Good." Nova leaned slightly into him, grounding herself again. "Let's finish this night," she said. A faint smile returned to her lips. "And remind the world I don't belong in anyone's past." The rest of the gala felt different after that. Not lighter exactly, but clearer. Like a storm had passed through and left the air sharper, more honest. Nova stayed close to Alexander for the remainder of the evening, not out of fear, but choice. Every so often her fingers would brush his hand, a quiet reminder to herself, "I'm here, I'm safe, I stayed." Alexander noticed, but didn't comment. He just responded every time, steady, present, unshaken. That alone did more for her than any speech ever could. By the time they returned home, the city had quieted into its late-night hum. The penthouse doors closed behind them with a soft click, sealing out cameras, expectations, and noise. Nova kicked off her heels immediately. "I swear, rich people floors are a form of torture." Alexander loosened his tie. "Noted. I'll have them redesigned." She shot him a look. "Don't start, I was joking." "I wasn't." That earned a laugh from her, real this time, not weighed down by tension. For a moment, they simply stood there in the quiet living room, the kind of silence that doesn't feel empty anymore. Then Nova exhaled slowly. "He looked at me like I was supposed to still be his." Alexander's expression tightened slightly, but his voice stayed calm. "And you weren't." "I know that now," she said. "But tonight, I felt it in my chest for a second, like the past tried to grab me." Alexander stepped closer. "And what did you do?" Nova met his eyes. "I didn't go back." A pause. "That matters," he said softly. She nodded once, then leaned into him, forehead against his chest. "I don't want my life to always have shadows in it," she admitted quietly. His arms came around her immediately. "Then we keep building something brighter than they can follow," he said. Nova let out a breath that sounded like release. "You always know how to say the right thing," she murmured. "I listened to the right person." That made her smile against him. Later that night, long after they changed into something comfortable, Nova stood by the window again, but this time she wasn't scanning for danger. She was just thinking. Alexander came up behind her, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Still awake?" "Yeah." She rested back into him. "I keep thinking about how different things are now." "In what way?" She hesitated. "Before you, I used to think love was something people survived." Alexander stayed quiet, letting her continue. "Like it was always supposed to hurt a little, or control you, or take something from you." Her hand rested over his. "But with you, it doesn't feel like survival." He tightened his hold slightly. "What does it feel like?" Nova smiled faintly. "Like I can finally stop running." A long silence passed between them, comfortable, grounding. Then Alexander kissed her temple. "Good," he said simply, "because I'm not going anywhere." Nova turned slightly in his arms to look up at him. "You better not be." That earned a soft laugh from him. "Not unless you tell me to." She studied him for a moment, then shook her head. "I'm done telling people to leave." He kissed her gently. "Then stay," he whispered. And for the first time in a long time, Nova didn't feel like she was choosing between love and survival. She felt like she had both. For the first time in a long time. Life felt normal, not perfect, not quiet, but normal in the way both of them had started craving. Weeks passed without Darnell appearing, without threatening messages, without paparazzi camping outside the penthouse at 3 a.m, and slowly, cautiously, Nova began breathing again. Marriage looked softer than she expected. It wasn't constant luxury or dramatic romance like magazines made it seem. It was Alex wrapping himself around her from behind while she made coffee at midnight because she couldn't sleep. It was stolen kisses in elevator mirrors, arguments over whose turn it was to order food, him pretending not to notice when she stole his hoodies, her catching him smiling at his wedding ring during meetings when he thought nobody was looking. The penthouse stopped feeling like Alex's home. It became theirs. And God, Alex loved that. He loved seeing her shoes kicked carelessly beside the couch, loved hearing music playing from her studio room at 2 a.m, loved waking up to blonde braids spread across his chest while sunlight filled their bedroom. Some nights they stayed in wearing matching pajama sets, Nova sitting barefoot on the kitchen counter eating cereal straight from the box, while Alex stood between her knees, listening to her rant dramatically about producers, gossip blogs, and celebrity nonsense. "You threatened a reporter with a shoe?" Alex asked one night, horrified. Nova shrugged while chewing cereal. "He deserved it." "You can't assault paparazzi." "I missed on purpose." Alex failed to hide his laugh. Nova pointed accusingly. "See? That's why I married you. You support my bad decisions." "No," Alex corrected softly, stepping closer until his hands rested on her thighs. "I married you because life got boring before you." Her expression softened instantly, and before she could stop herself, she leaned down and kissed him slowly. Warm, comfortable, safe. Marriage became quiet intimacy, more than grand gestures. Movie nights on the penthouse couch, Alex reading financial reports while Nova rested across his lap half asleep, private dinners hidden away in small restaurants where nobody bothered them, late-night drives through the city just because Nova liked watching Chicago lights reflect against the lake. For a while, it almost felt like the storm had passed. Then the nomination happened. Nova found out on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. She'd been in the recording studio wearing one of Alex's oversized shirts while arguing with her manager over track listings when her phone exploded with notifications. At first, she thought something was wrong. Then she saw the headline, "Nova Blaze nominated for Best Female Artist." For a moment, she simply stared, silent, disbelieving, because there was a time she thought her career was over, after Darnell, after the scandals, after the media dragged her through hell for marrying Alexander Whitmore. But somehow, she survived all of it. Her manager screamed loud enough to hurt her ears. The producers erupted around the studio, and before Nova even processed it fully, her phone rang. "Alex." She answered immediately. "You bribed somebody, didn't you?" she asked the second she picked up. Alex sounded deeply offended. "Excuse you, your talent did that on its own." Nova laughed despite herself. "You saw already?" "Baby," he said warmly. "The entire internet saw already." She sat down slowly on the studio couch, overwhelmed now that the excitement settled. "I didn't think," her voice softened, "I really didn't think I'd ever get here again." Alex went quiet for a moment. Then, "I did." Nova closed her eyes. Because that was the thing about Alex. When she stopped believing in herself, he carried the belief for both of them. The awards dinner invitation arrived 3 days later, and despite the nerves, despite the attention, despite the risks, Alex insisted they would go together. As husband and wife, he told her firmly while helping zip her gown before the mirror the night of the event. No hiding, no apologizing, no shrinking ourselves because people are uncomfortable with our happiness. Nova looked at him through the mirror carefully. Blue eyes, black tux, wedding ring gleaming beneath the penthouse lights. God, she loved him. "You always sound like a press conference," she teased softly. Alex smirked. "You married a CEO. Tragic, really." Nova laughed quietly before turning toward him fully, then reached up and adjusted his bow tie gently. "You nervous?" he asked. "A little." Alex lowered his forehead against hers. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think tonight the world finally sees what I see." Nova smiled faintly. "And what's that?" Alex looked at her like the answer was obvious. "My wife." The music awards dinner felt magical. Gold chandeliers shimmered across the massive ballroom, while cameras flashed endlessly around celebrities, executives, and artists dressed in glittering designer gowns and tuxedos. Music drifted softly beneath the roar of conversation and applause, and in the center of it all, Nova smiled, really smiled. Not the guarded expression she wore for interviews, not the defensive confidence she used for the public. This smile belonged to Alex, to her husband. Alex watched her from beside their table like he couldn't quite believe she was real. God, she was beautiful tonight. The fitted black gown hugged her curves perfectly, the slit revealing toned legs every time she moved, while her blonde braids cascaded over one shoulder like spun gold beneath the ballroom lights. And the wedding ring on her finger. His ring. Alex still found himself staring at it constantly. Nova noticed and smirked softly. "You keep looking at my hand like you forgot we got married." Alex leaned closer in his chair. "I'm still shocked you agreed to it." She laughed quietly, resting her hand against his jaw. "You're ridiculous." His blue eyes softened instantly at her touch. Everything around them faded whenever she looked at him like that. The noise, the cameras, the pressure, just her, only her. "You nervous?" Alex asked softly as presenters prepared for the next category. Nova inhaled slowly. "A little." Alex immediately reached beneath the table for her hand. "You already won." Nova rolled her eyes affectionately. "That doesn't even make sense." "It does to me." He kissed her knuckles gently. "You survived." Her expression flickered at that, because he understood what nobody else did. This nomination wasn't just about music, it was proof she survived everything meant to destroy her. The category announcement began moments later, and the award for Best Female Artist goes to... The room quieted. Nova's fingers tightened around Alex's instinctively. Then, "Nova Blaze!" The ballroom exploded into applause. Nova froze in disbelief before Alex stood instantly, laughing in pure pride as he pulled her into his arms. "That's my wife," he whispered emotionally against her temple. The cameras went wild, flash after flash capturing the kiss Alex pressed against her forehead, the way Nova clutched him tightly, the way they looked at each other like nobody else existed, and across the ballroom. Darnell watched every second. His chest burned, because she looked happy, not pretending, not surviving, happy. The kind of happiness she never gave him, or maybe the kind he never allowed her to have. His jaw tightened painfully watching Alex touch her so gently, like something precious, like something loved. Darnell hated him for it instantly. Nova made her way toward the stage through applause and camera flashes. Her voice shook slightly while accepting the award. "I spent a long time believing love was supposed to hurt," she admitted softly into the microphone. The room quieted. "But someone taught me that real love feels safe." Alex lowered his head briefly at their table, visibly emotional already. Nova looked directly at him. "And to my husband," her eyes watered. "Thank you for loving me loud enough that I finally learned how to love myself too." The applause became deafening, but Darnell barely heard it, because one sentence echoed violently in his head. Real love feels safe. Safe with him, not Darnell. Not anymore. Something inside him cracked completely. Security never saw him move. That was the terrifying part. He had studied this event for weeks. The service entrances, the catering rotations, the blind spots, because somebody helped him. Fed him information, encouraged him, promised him things. By the time Nova stepped off stage, smiling emotionally toward Alex, Darnell already had the gun in his hand. The first scream came from the back tables. Then chaos erupted instantly. Guests ducked. Champagne shattered. Security surged forward. Nova turned sharply and froze. Darnell stood near the service corridor, staring directly at her, eyes wild with emotion. Not just rage, desperation, pain, obsession. "You were supposed to come back," he shouted across the ballroom. Alex stood immediately. "Nova!" The gun lifted. Everything slowed. Nova saw Alex moving toward her, saw security drawing weapons, saw guests running, and then the gunshot exploded through the ballroom. Alex reached her first. His body slammed into hers hard enough to nearly knock her down as he wrapped himself around her instinctively. The bullet grazed across Alex's side violently, tearing through fabric and skin. He grunted sharply in pain. "Alex!" But before Nova could react, Darnell fired again, and this time Alex was exposed. Nova saw it instantly, saw the angle, saw where the bullet was heading, toward his chest, her husband, the man who loved her more purely than anyone ever had. Without thinking, Nova shoved Alex backward, then threw herself in front of him. The second shot hit her. The sound Alex made afterward didn't sound human. Nova gasped sharply as the force slammed into her shoulder and upper chest, her body collapsing backward into Alex's arms. The ballroom erupted into complete panic. "No!" Alex caught her before she hit the floor, blood instantly staining his hands. "Nova! Baby, look at me! Look at me!" Nova's face twisted in pain, breathing uneven as she clutched weakly at his jacket, and across the room, Darnell froze, completely froze. Horror overtook his expression instantly. "No," he whispered. The gun slipped slightly in his hand. "No, no, no, no!" Security tackled him violently, but Darnell barely reacted now. His eyes stayed locked on Nova, bleeding in Alex's arms. "She wasn't supposed to get hurt," he screamed desperately. "She said she'd be mine." Alex looked up sharply through panic and fury. "What?" Darnell struggled wildly against security now, tears actually forming in his eyes. "You said she'd come back if he was gone," he shouted hysterically towards someone unseen in the ballroom chaos. "You said she'd still love me." Alex's blood ran cold instantly, because Darnell wasn't talking to himself. He was talking to someone else, someone involved. Nova whimpered painfully in Alex's arms, dragging his attention back immediately. "Stay with me," Alex begged shakily, pressing his hand desperately against the wound. "Please, baby, please stay with me." Nova looked at him weakly, tears slipping down her face from the pain. Alex was crying openly now, too, completely shattered. "You can't leave me," he whispered brokenly. "Not you! Please, not you!" Nova tried to speak but coughed painfully instead. The sight nearly killed him. Around them, the ballroom dissolved into screaming guests, armed security, and flashing cameras, already capturing the disaster. But Alex saw none of it. Only her, only his wife, bleeding in his arms while the world threatened to take her away. And somewhere nearby, a blonde woman quietly disappeared through a side exit before security could lock the building down. Thanks for watching Part 2. Just when Nova and Alex thought they could finally live in peace, violence followed them straight to the awards stage. Darnell's obsession exploded in front of the entire world, leaving bloodshed, heartbreak, and terrifying new questions behind. But the biggest mystery still remains. Who was the woman Darnell kept talking about? Was she the mastermind behind everything? And after the shocking violence at the awards dinner, how will the public, the media, and Alex's powerful family react? Part 3 is going to change everything. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of Nova and Alex's story. And tell me in the comments, do you think their love can survive what's coming next?